They changed it, and a lot has changed. They moved the previously wide section slightly upward. Can you see it? They also increased the propellant capacity by 25%. So, with such a well-designed structure, why did it fail? Let's follow along from the beginning to find out. Hello everyone, nice to meet you. This is Andy Engineering Error. There was the 7th launch of Elon Musk's SpaceX Starship. In the beginning, everything seemed to be going smoothly with the launch and recovery, but it became a major talking point when Starship lost communication and ultimately exploded. The launch was delayed and took place at 5:37 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The launch occurred at the Starbase facility in southern Texas, seemingly in a competitive spirit with Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket, which successfully reached orbit on the same day. Actually, the Starship's design has been significantly modified, with numerous changes implemented. Since not everything went as planned, we need to analyze which parts of the design were altered. Additionally, we will look into the potential risks associated with these design changes. Additionally, the booster known as Super Heavy made a successful return this time. They reused the engine from the previous launch, and some components were confirmed to function properly, so it cannot be deemed a total failure. Originally, it was supposed to fly around the world and land in the Indian Ocean off Australia's west coast 66 minutes after liftoff. But they said the upper part of Starship was lost, meaning they lost communication. It was confirmed that it rapidly disassembled at X. This means it exploded on its own. Looking ahead, with Trump's upcoming inauguration next week, Elon Musk, as the leader of SpaceX, is expected to advocate for more frequent launches, criticizing the current complex procedures. This could result in significant policy shifts. Additionally, there is news regarding Starlink in relation to future Starship launches. Let's take some time to review all these updates together. First, just searching for Starship brings up many results. What is getting the most attention now is this. After the Starship exploded, the scene that somewhat resembles a meteor falling has become quite a significant topic of conversation among many people. Even from the cockpit of a commercial airplane, it was observed up close, and it seems that the disintegration was designed to burn up and disappear in such a manner. Although it might seem odd to appreciate the explosion of a spacecraft as something beautiful, it is true that visually it looks quite stunning. Elon Musk stated that the spacecraft experienced what he referred to as an unscheduled rapid disassembly. During its ascent, 6 engines began shutting down one after another, and after the initiation of the trap, 8, communication was lost in just 5 minutes, which is significantly faster compared to the previous launch. Additionally, the FAA will investigate, and for the next few months, SpaceX will take time to analyze what went wrong with the Starship. A launch in just a week or two is unlikely. A more detailed review period is expected. As I mentioned earlier, this time around, the Super Heavy booster was reused. Since they reused the Raptor engine from the 5th launch, let's examine its performance. It's truly astonishing every time I see it. They managed to retro-propel and reuse those Raptor engines. I'm not entirely sure if they managed to do it all at once or if it was done individually, but those parts that separated from the main Starship body reversed their course and came back to be caught by Mechazilla's chopsticks, right? The moment when the Starship is caught by the chopsticks is genuinely breathtaking every time I see it. It's incredible how it effortlessly secures the rocket, making continuous reuse possible, which is vital for mass production, as we all understand. So, succeeding in reuse after mass production is very meaningful. However, when it separated, the Super Heavy booster returned successfully, but the upper stage experienced engine shutdowns one by one, resulting in a loss of communication. Therefore, it is important to examine the design changes made to the upper stage of the rocket. Originally, about 17.5 minutes after liftoff, the upper stage was meant to house the next-generation Starlink satellites. To be precise, they didn't use actual satellites, but rather 10 mock satellites that looked identical to the real ones to see if they could be deployed correctly. They plan to deploy 40,000 satellites. Currently, 7,000 are in low Earth orbit, forming the Starlink mega constellation. They aim to utilize the Starship to form an extensive constellation cluster, intending to achieve this around the 17.5-minute mark. However, the explosion at the 8.5-minute mark thwarted their plans, making it impossible to proceed as intended. In essence, this Starship features more than 30 cameras mounted all over the spacecraft. So, we can view the footage from various angles directly because all these cameras are available, right? It shows us everything from multiple perspectives. Thanks to Starlink, we can receive this in real time at HD video transmission speed. That's pretty high quality, isn't it? Of course, since we now watch in full HD or higher, the image quality might feel better. With a speed of 120 megabits per second, it's incredibly fast. These simulated satellites are designed to burn up and vanish upon re-entry. Next, we changed the front flat section. It has seen many modifications. They shifted its position to the very end. This adjustment was made to minimize thermal exposure by distancing it significantly from the heat shield, as it was causing interference during re-entry. The tiles used for protection were streamlined to boost both reliability and performance. Compare it to the previous one. This person drew it well. In the previous one, this part is much wider. We need to consider the effects on the entire spacecraft when it moves. Moreover, they have managed to boost the booster capacity by a significant 25%. On the other hand, the amount of payload that can be carried will be reduced. The capacity of the fuel supply itself also increases, necessitating potential changes to the fuel supply lines. When storing and supplying rocket fuel, it is crucial to maintain the temperature of these liquid propellants. In the extremely cold environment of space, heat can transfer easily, causing the fuel to evaporate and thus reducing its efficiency. So, this vacuum jacket essentially functions as a protective layer with a vacuum inside, which is applied to the propellant supply line similar to how a vacuum-sealed container works. In simpler terms, it acts like a thermos, preventing the fuel from evaporating, thereby maintaining its stability for a longer period and improving performance. Additionally, the heat shield. This is called a heat shield. When passing through the atmosphere, it generates a lot of heat. It has tile-shaped thermal protection to block this heat. These upgrades have been made. So why did it fail despite being well designed? Let's go through the entire process from the beginning. At the beginning of the launch, all 33 engines ignited properly. The fuel used is called methalox. This indicates that the methane and oxidizer are being consumed correctly, and the initial 37-minute delay in the launch was due to the excessively strong winds at the time. So the rocket itself was fine, but liftoff was difficult. After getting launch approval, it was fired immediately. Following that, while hot staging might be a common sight and no longer new to many, I find it remarkable every time I see how well executed it is. The Super Heavy goes its own way, and here we can see one of its engines shutting down. The upper stage of the Starship was functioning correctly. It was proceeding as planned. Just as everything seemed to be going smoothly, the Super Heavy booster flipped and performed a successful re-entry burn, ensuring its recovery. Wow. Every time I see our planet from this perspective, it is truly shocking and gives me chills, making me question if we really live here. Thanks to Starlink, we can now witness this in real time. Therefore, you can see both the Super Heavy booster and the upper part of the main body together. As for the booster, its engines have completely shut down, and it is now in descent. As it continues its descent and executes a reverse thrust maneuver, you can see how it lands with precision. The booster makes a stunning descent, following its designated path. The reverse thrust is always thrilling to watch. Then, Mechazilla extends its arm and catches it gracefully, much like using chopsticks. As Mr. Hangsock often says, it's like picking up tteokbokki. It would be fantastic if we could reuse those engines. Up until the end of the engine burn, everything seemed fine. But just a few minutes before the planned shutdown, the engines began to shut down one by one at 1-minute intervals. Do you see it now? You can observe them shutting down one after another. As each one shut down one by one, it was clear there was a problem. There are 6 Raptor engines mounted now, right? So, on the outside, there are 3 gimbaled engines that move back and forth, along with 3 fixed vacuum-optimized Raptors. During the flight, an issue seemed to arise, leading to the shutdown of all engines and subsequently causing a malfunction. Around 8:30, it seemed to stop completely. An exposure occurred at the rear of the vehicle. Exposure can lead to an explosion if it meets an ignition source. Therefore, if we compare this with the second launch, which experienced an immediate failure, we can see that during this 7th launch, altitude and speed measurements were maintained while issues began to arise gradually. So, when a major meteor shower like the Leonids occurs, I used to watch it a lot as a kid and even recently. Such a magnificent display unfolds. Eventually, all of it will burn up and vanish, right? The design must ensure debris is eliminated. The explosion made the scene even more spectacular. It left a mark you don't usually see in the sky in our lifetime. There were some interesting aspects to it. With the significant design changes, there were issues like engines shutting down. As it is under investigation, we need to check what those problems were. As the oxygen and methane from the propellant began to leak, the pressure inside the engine increased to an extremely high level. As leaks become more prevalent, the Raptor engines could encounter issues with internal components such as pipes and valves. This can potentially trigger explosive reactions when they come into contact with ignition sources, as previously mentioned. In high temperature and high pressure conditions, the presence of leaks can always compromise overall stability. Additionally, we intend to examine any potential problems with the newly installed heat shield in the future. Andy Engineering Era has opened an international channel, showcasing my excellent English skills. I invite you to check it out. AI is so amazing, everyone. Just search for Unreal Tech, and I hope you show a lot of interest. This has been Andy Engineering Era.